there's a number of groups that actually thinks that business have to have a bigger role in society and has a bigger responsibility than strictly business in society. Do you see some of those requests on Schlumberger too?
Schlumberger has a tremendous advantage. I don't sell anything to the general public. It's probably, if I added up all my clients everywhere, it's probably less than 500,000 people. And they tend to be generally either engineers or people with a university education. So the debate that we have with our customers is very different from the debate of someone who sells gasoline on the corner. So I think that perhaps the first thing is, in our looking at these things, is the fact that we hire 2,500 graduates a year, and we hire them from a lot of countries. And you cannot, people have preconceived notions about various nationalities, and therefore the only way we can get over those preconceived notions is to have a very strong ethical policy and ethical compliance policy. And if you join Schlumberger tomorrow, in the first week you will be taught three things: how to be safe, how to be ethical, and how to use our IT system. And then on climate change, our opinion, and it's my opinion, this is a very personal thing, is that there is sufficient evidence of an increase in the level of emissions in the atmosphere to be concerned about the effect that it may have on the climate. But that the science of climatology is by no means complete, and that it is going to take a long time before we really actually know what the effect of these emissions is going to be. In the meantime, it is prudent and reasonable to try and reduce those emissions as far as we can.
And the alternative energy sources?
I don't think there's a silver bullet in alternative energy. In other words, I think that, as we said in the National Petroleum Council Hard Truth Report, every source of energy is going to be necessary. I think the question is how those sources of energy get used.
Yeah.
And to the extent that they are only used because they are supported by subsidies, I'm not always convinced that that's the right thing to do. Now, I do think that longer term, there is a huge potential in solar, but it's probably still 15 to 20 years away before you get, a proper way of distributing power at the right cost. Mm-hmm. And you get silicon or other materials down to a cost which makes it really cost effective. But long term, I think that has to be a key alternative energy source. Mm-hmm. I'm not a great believer in biofuels, because I'm not sure, while they're good in the energy security equation, I'm not sure that, until there's real scientific breakthroughs in cellulosic ethanol, that they are cost effective or even carbon neutral in the energy balance. Mm-hmm. I have trouble with wind because I do think that at the moment it's, talking to the head of a major German industrial conglomerate the other day told me that if there weren't subsidies, he would be losing money in those businesses, which is why we are big bulls on natural gas, and we also very much think that oil should be reserved for its optimal use, which is transportation, and that efforts to sequester CO2 where they are economically viable should be undertaken. And then we do point out that energy is the source of economic growth, and the world is not going to stop growing because of CO2 emissions. We don't have a huge footprint like the oil companies, and therefore we think that the best contribution that we can make to development and sustainability is in education. So we run 2 major education programs. So for example, we've been running a water purity experiment across about 15 countries for the last 5 years, where kids, we give them a test kit, they test the water, they record the results on a computer, and the whole thing's put together. And it's very satisfying for our employees in a particular place to feel that they contribute in that way. Yeah. The second thing is a fabulous program where we have a foundation that was originally created in the United States and in Holland to contribute to educational causes, and we have diverted the whole of that to giving scholarships for women from the third world to pursue postgraduate studies. So we have currently somewhere 60 or 70 ladies in different universities around the world doing doctorates and postdoctorate studies. They have no obligation to come and work for us. The only obligation we put on them is to go back to their own country and teach for a few years after they finished.